Empower Youth Week Masterclass. Be inspired, be connected, be transformed.
So I'll tell you what, I want to start by talking about myself being a guest on the proudly South African Instagram live platform just a few days ago, in fact, right? So, they speak a lot about, buy local, and I was asked my opinion about that, and that's fine. But this is what I said that I want you to think about as you grow yourself individually, and as you grow your organization, and maybe you grow your own business, whatever it is that you do, right? So I'm saying it's fine to buy local, but if buying local is the only solution to solving South Africa's and maybe your economic problem, then which country is just doing that? I don't know. Think about it. If every country in the world only buys local, you know what will happen? No other person from outside that country will buy their goods because they'll only be buying local, which means you can't sell globally as well. So I'm saying, if you wish to be patriotic, and it's important, we've just come off the back of Heritage Month, right? It's important to support local, but more than just buying local, have you considered building local? You see, if you buy local, but if you're in the business of production and you put the emphasis on building local, right, you're then building an industry which then targets other people from around the world. So what am I saying in a nutshell? I'm saying buy local, build local, put the emphasis on build local, and then you got it, sell global. Buy local, build local, sell globally. The build local is where I want to focus on, because that is at the heart of being patriotic. So being patriotic is not just about how you buy and how you consume, but how you manufacture and how you produce. And very importantly, that is central to your position in your country. Because if you think of all the countries in the world, ultimately those that succeed have the ability to be able to get people from outside those countries to want their products. Think about Samsung or Samsung. It's made in Korea. What connection do you have with Korea? But you want their goods, right? Or think about an Apple product. Or if many of you follow football, many of the young guys, besides the local Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates and Mamelodi Sundowns, forget about the other teams you were saying, whatever. But think about the other big teams from around the world in football. Manchester United, Liverpool, Manchester City, Barcelona, Bayern Munich. They all come from different countries. Somehow, they are able to export their connection to you and your connection to them. So, why am I saying this? If you wish to be truly patriotic, it's great to carry the flag. Goodness, I love the South African flag. It gives me a thrill wherever I see it. But that's the physical part of being patriotic. The more important part of being patriotic is to set in processes, steps that will make people from outside your country want that what you build, what you produce, okay? Which then gets me to thinking about where we are as a country, and perhaps for me, where I sit or fit in as the founder of Champion South Africa. Now, you need to think about this, right? Think about all the countries of the world, going back hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years, okay? I'm trying to think about it. I'm thinking about back home, the great Zulu Empire. And then you can think about the Ashanti Empire from Ghana. And then you think about what happened in countries like in Egypt and North Africa as well. And then moving beyond that, the Ottoman Empire. And then you think of the Aztecs and the Incas, in South America. And then you think of the British Empire. And I can move on and on and on. There are two things that are common, okay? All those empires at some stage or the other were dominant. That's the one thing they have in common. The other thing they have in common is, you know what? All those empires fell. At some stage or the other, they all have down. That's the one thing they all have in common. The second thing they all have in common is, and I want you to think about this, is people. Because people are very much central to empire building. When people get things right, it's when people get things right, then things come right. And when people get things wrong, as a result of that, you find your country starts collapsing. Now, you may think about, as I'm talking to you right now, right, that in the context of South Africa, we have so many things that we do and that we get right and some things we don't, okay? But of all those things we do, the decision-making from the top right down to the bottom ultimately depends very much on the people. So I want you to think about this, because if I go back to the empires, right, champion people build champion nations. Reflect on it. Champion people actually build champion people, because if you want to be a champion, you build other people into becoming champions. And then champion people build champion nations. So in the South African context, if you've got an ounce of patriotism, which is about your intense love and desire for your country, because you want to hey, do great things for your country, right? Then my advice to you is ask yourself, where do you fit in? Because champion people build champion South Africa. So can you be that? Can you be one of those champion people that builds champion South Africa? Because if you move on to many aspects of the world, the focus has got to be on the people. So my question to you, therefore, right, as you're seated here today, or standing wherever you may be, right, you have to be asking yourself some pretty serious questions. It's one thing, expecting the government to do things for you, or expecting a company to do things for you. It's another thing completely, internalizing it yourself. So let me give you an example. I love using sporting analogies, okay? In a sports team, if you're playing soccer or football, and a player doesn't do well, what do we do in South Africa? It's a common thing. It's like we do that. We want a substitution. We want to change, right? Okay? Now, have you ever thought about the entire country as being one big soccer field? And every one of us are playing in that game. We're like 60 million people all on the pitch at one time. You see, the difference between playing a game of football and playing for your country is when you are born, you're already South African. You're already picked for the team. You don't have to be selected. Nobody can pick you and nobody can even sub you. You're in the team already, okay? So if you are able to make that distinction and understand your role, that you can't be picked, you can't be subbed, you're in the team, the responsibility, like you want the other 11, or if you're playing rugby, you want 15 players to perform for the Springboks, right? The responsibility in this case is you're part of 60 million people that you want to see perform. And because you can't be subbed, the question is you need to be performing to the best of your abilities. So I want to emphasize that point again. Think about it. Champion people, champion South Africa. When I say champion, what do I mean by champion? Okay? Because it's a strong word. So champion has got two, it's a verb and a noun. It's a noun because it suggests excellence in your space. So whether you're this medical doctor, you're this scientist, you're this engineer, you're this IT person, you're this marketing wizkid, you're this great TV host or radio personality, if you're top of your game, then you're a champion. So my first point to you is, can you be a champion in your space? Because South Africa, and this is the patriotic part I want to talk to you about, South Africa doesn't just need you to wave the flag. It doesn't just need you to say, I'm proudly South African. It needs you to take active steps to be able to play for your country. So one is to be a champion. And all you have to do is, whatever your space and your field is, be the best that you can possibly be. Be best in class at what you do. The second part is champion is also a verb, right? It's an act of doing. It's a beautiful word. So it's a noun and it's a verb. When you champion things, you champion a cause. And if I made the point that champion people, champion South Africa, what better cause for you as we talk empowerment and we talk patriotism and we come off the back of Heritage Month than for you to champion the cause of South Africa? I want you to think about that for a second. Because if we all do that and we champion the cause of South Africa, what's going to happen to our country? If we collectively decide that we want to up our game. You see, I think, okay, let me tell you about this dream. I had this dream, okay? I know Martin Luther King Jr. had his own dream, but I have mine as well. I have this dream of the United Nations Secretary General one day standing up, and in his or her hands, they hold aloft this big trophy. Just imagine this. And then the Secretary General says, this trophy goes to the champion nation for the year. And I'd like to award the trophy to the champion nation for the year to... Don't you wish it says South Africa? Don't you just wish the SG of the United Nations says South Africa? And don't you just wish that your president, he or she, gets up and accepts it on behalf of every one of us? Now, I know there's no competition like that. It doesn't exist. So what? You know, really good students, if you want to be patriotic, like in a classroom, you start learning your lessons long before the teacher comes up. You start studying long before it's study time. So the competition hasn't started. So what? Think about it. If we are declared a champion nation, and we're not there now, we're a mid-table nation. In sporting terms, we're a mid-table nation that probably messes up more than we win. And that means we move down toward the lower rungs of a league table of nations. But if we win, we start getting up to the top and becoming those champions. But if you are the champion nation, what would it mean? What does it mean to you and your family? You see, that's the patriotism I'm interested in. It would mean your leadership is top-notch. It would mean your education is top-notch. It would mean your businesses are top-notch. It would mean everybody's got jobs. It would mean poverty is at an all-time low. It would mean the gap between rich and poor would be, well, from there would come to there. There's a sense of equality in our country. It would mean crime would be virtually reduced to nothing. It would mean that when people in the world hear the name excellent, well, I often think about this. How often when you ask people about products that work, you often hear people say, well, it's been used in the States. Don't you get irritated by that? Don't you get irritated that people don't say, I know it works. How do you know it works? Well, it's been tested in South Africa. Wouldn't you like that to happen? So that's what a champion nation will give you, okay? But if you're interested in that sort of champion nation, then you must know you have to build something. So I'll go back to what I said from the outset. Build something. If you're a professional, be the champion in your game. If you want to build an organization, if you want to build a business, build a champion business that stands up as the best in your suburb, in your township, in your city, in your country, and perhaps, just perhaps, as the very, very best in the world. Because for South Africa to become a champion nation, we don't need one or two champions. It's one thing saying, Mandela's a champion, or maybe Trevor Noah's a champion, or Mark Shuttleworth is a champion, or Augustus Semenya is a champion. That's not enough. We don't need 4 champions. We don't need 40 champions. We don't need 100 champions. You know what we need? We're a country of 60 million people. We need at least 1 million people who are champions in their space. When that happens, the entire level of the country just goes up. For that to happen, you need to organize yourself. And therefore, if I use the example of a business, champion people build champion businesses. So perhaps you can think about this one. Champion people also build champion organizations. Whichever organizations are coming together. One thing is for yourself. Organizations can be township organizations, can be Stockvelds, can be your local sports club. whatever it is that you do, right? Religious organizations, churches, mosques, it doesn't matter. But put it together and put the effort to turn those things into champion organizations. Now, the key you may ask is like, okay, well, how then do we do that, right? Well, I want you to think about this, right? That's why I gave the example of South Africa as a country. We are 60 million people playing for the same team. Because champion businesses or champion organizations are premised on having champion teams. You can't do it on your own. One person cannot do it. So my advice to you today, under this theme of like, how can I talk to you about being patriotic, is like, can you put your efforts together to build the type of teams, and by teams I do not mean sport, you know that, right? To build the type of business teams, organizational teams coming together of people, different people, people you agree with, people you disagree with, people who speak different languages, people who look differently to you. So what? Your common goal is to build South Africa into a champion nation. And for that to happen, it means you have got to get your team structure right and create a team culture. Because teams need culture. You need to have a winning culture and a culture of accepting each other and a commitment that we are all going in the same direction. So if you can do that, we'll take one massive, giant step to becoming a champion nation. Now you may go home and switch off after you and I talk today and say, but I can't feel this because I'm unemployed. I'm desperate. I'm down and out. It's one thing worrying about my country. I can't even worry about myself. But under that theme of teams, this is what you need to be doing. One of the big problems in South Africa right now is how often when individuals win, and even teams, businesses win and do well for themselves, how often do they pick up a South African flag in the same way when you have an Olympic champion? I'm thinking of Tatiana Schoolmarket just recently. How often do you get that in the business field where you've clinched a massive deal, you've won a great service agreement? How often some people want to do a toast, but how often do you pick up the flag in the same way that an Olympic champion will pick up the flag? What am I saying? Under this understanding of how teams work, can you, when you succeed, even in school, even at university, even at colleges, as a young South African, can you make the link between you and South Africa? Can you say this? Can you say, when I win, South Africa wins? Can you do that? And can you say, when South Africa wins, I win? Because you see, that's the essence of this understanding the circle of how a team works, of the interconnectedness between you and your country. Whether you like it or not, you are in a collaborative, co-creative mode. And you can't get it out. So you might as well work together. So I want you to reflect on that and think about that very, very strongly, right? Because if you don't, then all your successes are individual successes. You're working in silos. And then when the country succeeds, it's almost like South Africa is some other foreign country. Because what South Africa at this moment, what we lack is what I'd call a champion DNA. If I mention 5 countries to you right now under this guise of being patriotic, you can answer this to yourself, okay? I'll throw out a name, you think about it, and what is it that comes to mind when I mention that country? Okay? So I'll start with the USA. Think about it. I'll start with Germany. Moving on to Germany. Japan. Korea. Egypt. Nigeria. Singapore. When I mention those names, you think about the people of that country and the products they produce, isn't it? Because that's the way you know the country. So now let me mention another one. South Africa. What comes to mind for you? So understand that role for you to build. Because as we wrap up, and I want you to think about this, right? Perhaps I'm going to wrap up with a nice story, because you're sitting here, many of the young South Africans are unemployed, many people are unemployable, many people have degrees but they can't get jobs, they're trying to find a way, a solution. And I understand, you can like rah-rah the whole day. It doesn't solve your problem. So here's just one simple thought that I want you to hold on to. Okay, and it's a story I've heard a few years ago, so I'm going to repeat it. It's not my story. I've heard this a long time ago. So there were two people, and they were out in the jungle, like backpackers. I don't know what they were doing in the jungle, but two guys, backpackers out in the jungle, and they were wearing sandals. I don't know why, but they were in the jungle. And from 100 meters away, they see a lion. And you and I know, if you're in the jungle and you're on foot, and you can't tell a lion foot sack, but you would be wondering what happens next, isn't it? So these two people are on foot and they see the lion 100 meters away, and they're like, oh my goodness, oh my God, what's going to happen to us? They're obviously fearful. The lion is 100 meters away, ready to pounce on them. And while all this is happening, the one guy, remember they're backpackers, he very quickly removes his backpack, puts it down, opens it up, takes off his sandals that he was wearing, and he puts on a pair of Nike running shoes. And the other guy, and this happens all very quickly, and his buddy tells him, like, you're so stupid. The lion is 100 meters away and is about to attack us. And you have got time to still put on your running shoes. And the friend tells him, I'm not stupid. You see, for me to stay alive, I don't have to be faster than the lion. I just need to be faster than you. Think about that. We'll end with this, because if there's one thing that you need to understand in the world, is that important point. Can you make every day a champion day? Can you do that? Make every day a champion day. Those guys out in the jungle, that guy made a champion decision to stay alive. Can you, and I'm appealing to your patriotism, if you truly want South Africa to tick and to work, can you internalize and every day measure yourself by yourself? Measure yourself with your purpose. What is your purpose? Why do you exist? Most people, when I ask them, what is your purpose? They tell me what job they're doing. You know, purpose is not your job. Purpose is a role that you play bigger than your job. Okay? If anything, if there's one thing I wish, and therefore my parting advice to you is this: don't focus on the job you're going to get or you want. Focus on your purpose. If you truly understand your purpose, you will then make every day a champion day, because you will know your purpose. And then every job decision that you make, in terms of the jobs you accept and the jobs you refuse, and the businesses you create and the business decisions you make, and the team decisions you make in whichever form, will be linked to your purpose. Because when you understand your purpose in the world, you will understand, very importantly, the need for you to make every day your champion day. My purpose is to build champion people. I head up an organization called Champion South Africa. And our goal is to turn South Africa into a champion nation. But my purpose is to start by building people into champion people. So as I end up I'm talking to you and I'm hoping in some way or the other that I can be my patriotic self to try and strike a patriotic chord, an umbilical cord between me and you, so that I can turn you into one of those champion people. Because at the end of the day, and I want you to remember this, it's champion people that build champion people, and champion people that build champion nations. So here's the thoughts to end. Are you one of those champion people?
For more informative videos, visit www.empoweryouth.co.za.